Hey everybody, BW the Marriage Guy here. I want to thank you for joining me today. Have a special episode of Marriage Grind. I had the honor and privilege of meeting a couple all the way down from Colorado. They have an amazing marriage ministry called Nurturing Marriage. Their name is Aaron and April Jacob. Took a moment and opportunity to interview them. I'm going to go ahead and direct you right to the interview. I'll see you right afterwards. All right, welcome to this episode of Marriage Grind. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Here, I have a very special couple, Aaron and April. They're on the line. April and Aaron, hey, you guys there?
We're here. Thanks for having us.
This is awesome. They're all the way down from Colorado. They're doing some great things down there. I just really wanted to take a moment and opportunity to interview them and ask them some questions because I think they're doing some special things. April, Aaron, so you guys have this ministry called Nurturing Marriage. And many people, I don't know if they know about you guys or not, but there's many people that I feel who could be impacted by what you do on a regular basis. Tell us about how you guys got started.
Yeah, so it's Nurturing Marriage is really an organization. It's a website that's dedicated to promoting practical ways for couples to nurture their relationships, to promote healthy and strong relationships. So www.nurturingmarriage.org. It's been around for about 2 years now. So we started it on our anniversary, actually. We launched the website on our anniversary. So that was significant to us. It was our 6th anniversary. And we celebrate our marriage. And we wanted to promote practical ways that others could strengthen their marriages. So it really started probably 3 months before our anniversary, where we just thought, what can we contribute? What's something that we can work together on that's going to be a fun project for us, something that we're passionate about, that we feel strongly about, that makes a difference in the world. And, this was something that readily came to mind. It actually came to mind as I was driving home from work one day. So I came home and I said, hey, April, what do you think about this?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that stemmed from conversations Aaron and I had been having. We had about 5 different couples we knew a couple years back getting divorced. And we recognized marriage is hard. It takes a lot of work. It's not like happily ever after just comes and it's this peaceful bliss, right? So I think we recognized something isn't happening in these marriages of our friends. And is there anything we can do to A, protect and strengthen our marriage, and B, help other couples? And so Nurturing Marriage kind of evolved from just a passion to be committed to that relationship and to doing everything you can to make it work.
Right.
It's been really fun to see it take off from there. I mean, we launched it day one with, just us putting out content and doing what we could. And our friends were excited about it, and the word just kind of spread from there. Where today we work with a team of contributors. You can check them out on the website, but it's it's an impressive group of people and organizations that we partner with that provide really high quality content and ideas for how couples can strengthen their marriages. So it's been fun to see that grow in the direction that it's gone. And we're looking forward to seeing where it goes in years to come as well.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And you guys stepped out, took a leap of faith. You saw people that were struggling and you just went for it. I love that. And many people don't really understand how much work it takes to have a really successful marriage. And a lot of people, they compare their relationship to others. I'm just curious to just kind of learn from you guys. Like, what do you feel it takes to nurture your marriage and not focus on what other people are doing? What do you feel it takes to nurture your own marriage?
My first thing that comes to mind, I would say intentionality. So that's kind of a theme I think that runs behind everything we do at Nurturing Marriage is you made a choice when you married that person.
Right.
And you have to make that same choice to love that person, to care for that person, to serve that person, and to do everything you can to be a good partner and to make that marriage work. And it really is a matter of being intentional. If you're intentional about saying, I love you, intentional about planning a date night, intentional about greeting your spouse with a kiss or sending a text, intentional about scheduling a getaway or celebrating your anniversary. If you're intentional about those things, then you're going to see that you can have a happy marriage and you can make it through those, dips and things like that. What were you going to say? We're going to talk about 6 pillars.
Yeah, it was. And then, but what you were saying there at the start, it takes a lot of work to have a successful marriage, right? Anyone who's been married more than a year knows that. And we've been able to learn from a lot of couples. We like to interview couples. So we have a section on our website called Featured Couples. And we interview couples. Some of them are newlyweds. Some have been married for 5 years or a handful of years, 10 years. We've interviewed people who have been married for a long time, for decades and decades. And it's been really interesting to observe what those couples who have been successfully married for decades, what they have done to make their marriages last and to be happily married after decades of marriage. And a lot of it, I think, boils down to what April was saying, being intentional. But when we were organizing, kind of trying to gather our thoughts on what do we want to promote with nurturing marriage, we came up with what we call the 6 pillars of nurturing marriage. What are the things that are really critical to making marriage work and are very practical? So these are all on our website, but the 6 pillars that we came up with were the little things. We had date night, intimacy, routines and rituals, values to live by, and conflict resolution or conflict management. And we just kind of felt, hey, these are the critical things that couples can develop skills around, and they can implement practical day-to-day things that they do to better themselves, to serve their spouse, to manage differences of opinion, things of that nature, that will really make their marriage special. And sometimes we've been asked, well, where does communication fit in there? Because I think one of the most common
marriage tips,
some of the most common advice that newly married couples or engaged couples they get is, it's all about communication. And we, I don't second guess that at all. So for us, those 6 pillars kind of sit on a foundation of communication. And it's important that you communicate about what are the things that work in your marriage. When it comes to intimacy, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Date nights, how do you manage date nights? The little things, what is your love language? Those types of things, you communicate about them, and then you build on that foundation of communication, and you make sure that you're covering these 6 pillars, and it can make for a very successful and happy marriage.
I also think communication, a foundation of communication, and also a foundation of connection. Because in all of that, what we're really seeking for when we're trying to communicate is to connect with our spouse and to feel understood and connected and loved in that communication. One other thought I had, we like to base this idea of learning to nurture your marriage off of this analogy of a tree. And so you could kind of take the story 2 ways. You have a tree, a seed that you would plant. And if you take care of it and you water it and you prune it and you make sure that it gets the nourishment that it needs, it's going to grow, it's going to bear fruit, it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, it's going to take diligence and hard work.
Commitment.
Yeah. But if you just kind of let things slide, the sun is going to come, little bugs can get inside of a tree, you can forget to prune it, you forget to water it. And it's like the trees we have in our backyard. Let's be honest, we do not take care of our yard very well. We have one dead tree in our backyard that I look at and think, we have not nurtured that tree. But like a tree, if it's going to grow, if it's going to bear fruit, you have to nurture it and nourish it and take care of it. And so I like to think, I'm not going to see the fruit of everything I'm doing to try and take care of my marriage immediately. But my goal is to put in effort, put in intentionality, put in all the care and the love that I can, and watch over time how my marriage is nurtured.
I like that. I kept hearing the key word, intentional. Like that word just stands out. I know that you guys talked about communication. You talked about the 6 pillars of nurturing your marriage. Those are some great stuff. I think when you talk about being intentional, it's about the way you plan to do things. So if you don't plan and choose to do it, that means you don't care about it. So I like how you guys said that you have this tree in the backyard that you don't really take care of and all that. And I think a lot of people will relate to that, because if you look at your backyard, I mean, can you tell much about a person by the way you look at the backyard or the front yard? I mean, some people mean to take care of it, but some of them don't have time to. But when you're married, you have to make time to put the effort in to make sure that you are nurturing your marriage. I like how you talk about being intentional. So I guess a great question to follow up on is, why do you feel that many couples struggle or are finding it hard to focus on their marriage?
It's probably the exact opposite of what makes a marriage successful, right? It's the lack of intentionality. So it's very easy, and it's a gradual process, right? You don't get married one day and then all of a sudden you find yourself, at each other's throats, and you're just not communicating well, and you find yourself in a broken marriage. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual thing. Building a successful marriage is a gradual thing. So I think it really kind of boils down to the lack of intentionality. Think about when you're dating, you're trying to, win each other over. You put your best foot forward, and you really see the best in each other. So we've shared some articles using a concept that we call, putting on your rose-colored glasses. When you're dating, you just see the best in each other. And sometimes you get married and you're living with each other, and you start to notice little quirks that maybe you didn't realize were there before, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start to notice that this person you married is not perfect. He's not the the knight in shining armor you always thought he was.
Right.
It's important that you continue to see the good in each other. Keep your rose-colored glasses on. Is kind of the principle that we teach. Do the little things that you did when you were dating. You would compliment each other. You would hold each other's hands. You would bring flowers to each other, little treats or whatever. You do the little things that really meant a lot. And for whatever reason, it's very easy to fall out of those habits and lose that intentionality and think, oh, maybe I've already won the prize because now we're married. But that's just the beginning of the journey, right? It's a lifelong journey of continuing to nurture your marriage and win each other's love and be there for each other. So it's very easy to lose that intentionality, not because you don't want the fruits of a happy marriage, not because you intentionally, don't want that. It's really because life comes at you, right? You get busy, careers take over, school takes over, or kids come along, or, community involvement, or a church involvement, whatever. Life can get very busy, and sometimes it's easiest to push the spouse to the side because they'll understand, right? They'll understand, and we can move our date to next week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll still be able to go down to Crave next week, right? It's easy to do that and make excuses, but instead, if you're able to say, no, this is what we're going to do. We're going to be intentional about date night, and we're going to block off time on our calendars, and we're going to make sure that it happens. Everyone faces challenge and difficulty around that, but we're going to choose to be intentional about this, and you really set yourself up for success if you do that.
Yeah. I like how your wife just looks at you when you're talking. She looks at you like you're the perfect man for me.
That is the truth.
It's awesome. I was just like, wow. She stared at him like so gracefully, like, wow, that's beautiful.
All the hard eyes, right? Can I add? I think so. I think what Aaron touched on is just life and busyness and distraction, right? I mean, that just happens to each of us. I think another thing that happens maybe that makes it hard for couples is that, studies show like after about 2 years, this limerence, this romance, this butterflies, you make me crazy inside kind of dies off. It's a natural progression to a deeper, more mature kind of love. And I think you've got that going on, and then you've got life coming at you. So you've got conflict coming. And if in the beginning you don't learn to resolve conflict and make repair attempts and come back and say, I'm sorry, you start to disconnect over time. And things, I mean, if you don't feel connected to your spouse and life's happening, you're just going to slowly and surely start feeling so distanced and so disconnected from each other. So protecting against those things by keeping the romance alive.
And you know what kills the romance? Kids.
In a lot of ways it does.
We were all thinking
like you could totally be in the moment, like, hey man, what's going on? And next thing you know, the kid walks in like, hey, it was about to be on tonight. But I'm glad we're talking about kids because, you know, a lot of times before we have kids, you know, our world is centered around God and our spouse. Now, when we have kids, it seems like people put their kids before their spouses. Why do you feel that couples should put their spouse before their children?
And so let us first say for your viewers, you know, we get it. We've got 3 kids ourselves. So, and our kids are young.
You guys have been to work.
We're in the thick of it.
We have a good marriage too. So we've got a 6-year-old, we got a 4-year-old, and we just had a baby just a couple months ago. Doesn't she look fantastic for just having had a baby?
Thank you.
Literally 2.5 months ago. So we get it. And we're trying to get it right and make it work. For us, it's not that kids are not important, right? We love our kids. Our kids mean everything to us, and we put everything into our kids. And we want our kids to be better than we were, and we want our kids to have better opportunities than we had. And you know, you want the best for your kids, and you love them to death. How I like to think about it is, you know, your marriage is really the foundation or the nucleus of your family.
Right.
And without a strong foundation, it's pretty hard to keep your family strong, right? Mm-hmm. And not only that, but probably the best thing that you can do for your kids to increase their self-esteem, to help them feel very secure and loved and cared for, is to have a strong marriage. So it almost seems a little bit counterintuitive. Well, if I go have personal time with my spouse, or if we go on a date, maybe we feel a little bit of guilt because we feel like we're neglecting our kids. But we kind of need to flip that on its head and say, no, we're doing this because we love our kids and because we want to show them how to have a successful marriage. You know, which parents would say, oh, I hope my kid has a divorce in their life? Like, nobody's going to say that, right? You want the best. But sometimes our actions don't show them how to achieve success when we are in the best position to teach them how to experience that success in their lives. So I just think if you're able to keep the core strong, if you're able to keep your marriage strong, that just improves everything for your family. And your kids are in a much better situation because your marriage are strong. And you're better for your kids because maybe there isn't all that conflict and tension between you and your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would say those were fabulous points. I would say for some practical tips maybe for couples who are saying, okay, so we've got kids, they keep us busy, they make it hard to have sex, they make it hard to go on dates, they make it hard to like be happy when we see each other again. So some practical tips, I think you can just start to set some boundaries. Like, you know, in the evenings, our kids are in their rooms, they're staying in their rooms and going to bed at this time so we can have our alone time. You know, if the kid starts crying and you're making love, well,
let them cry.
Ignore the kid or take a break and come back to it. Even things like schedules. I think it's important for couples to take a look at their schedule together and say, okay, we're running to all of these places, piano and karate and soccer and football and dance. And we're being intentional about our kids having a great education and a great experience learning these things. We've got to fit in first date night, getaways, our time, a lunch date, you know, a break for this. and then schedule the kids' activities around it, and make sure that you're not just on the run like ships passing in the night, taking your kids to everything, taking care of everything.
I think the other thing to remember is time is a precious commodity, right?
Yes.
And we all wish there were more hours in the day. And sometimes we go through seasons of life where time is at such a shortage that it's more about the quality of the time we spend together than maybe the quantity. So, for example, if somebody's going through a busy stage of their career or schooling or whatever, maybe they don't have as much time to spend with their spouse as they would like to. Well, you can still make sure that the time you do have to spend together is high quality time. You know, it's time that's invested well. And when you do have that time to spend together, you're actually there. Rather than, you know, I'm checking my phone all the time as I think I might have a work email coming in that I need a response or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, check out and you're actually present when you do have that time so you can have quality time together.
Man, I love you guys.
Well, thanks.
I just like how raw and real you guys are. Like, you know, I talk to many people who just seem like they're just not authentic. But like throughout this whole interaction, you guys, I could just tell like you guys just flow.
Well, thanks.
And I'll tell you, I think one of the things that we've learned, not only in our marriage, but in our interactions with others, like every marriage is unique and there's no one secret sauce that works for everybody. Like you have to figure out what works for you and your spouse. And every marriage is real. Like we've heard people before that have said, my spouse and I never disagree. And my jaw always hits the floor because I think, how is that possible?
Because he's married to me.
That is, if that's truly the case, that is incredibly impressive to me.
Yes.
That's amazing, honestly. And what's interesting as well is we've noticed that, so we have a section, one of the 6 pillars called conflict resolution. And as we've talked to couples about that, we've noticed an interesting thing. Everyone experiences conflict in their marriage, but how they respond to conflict varies dramatically. So you have some couples who experience conflict, and whether the source of conflict is internally or it's one of the spouses, or even if it's externally. There are some couples, when they face that conflict, it kind of drives a wedge in between them, and it serves to push them apart from each other. But there are other couples that are able to grow stronger through conflict. And I think there are some practical tips and things that couples can put in place to make sure that you fit on that side. But it's been really interesting for us to realize that every marriage is unique.
Yeah.
And very, very, very few marriages, I think, out there don't experience the ups and downs of marriage. And so you don't need to get down on yourself because you're going through a rough patch in your marriage. You can work on it and you can get better.
Yes.
I have to add to that because I feel like I'm finally, after 8 years of marriage, maturing enough to recognize that, because I really do not like conflict. I want there to be peace at all times. And I think I finally realized just because conflict is present, that doesn't say anything about our marriage at all. That just says that we're humans and we're living real life. My job is to determine how to best manage or resolve or work on those issues that either I can work on personally or we can work on together, so that it doesn't have to cause contention or frustration, but rather, we can look at the conflict, recognize the conflict, set some rules for how we're going to discuss the conflict, and give it time.
Yeah. Can't remember how we got on that topic, but
Thanks
probably
for the
just
segue.
rambling.
I like that. So it actually leads me to my next question. Why do you feel that many couples who are struggling with keeping the fire in their marriage?
Go ahead.
So I think that question is kind of similar to what we touched on before. I think about couples that I look at where it really does look like that flame's kind of out.
Mm-hmm.
It can come because of conflict that hasn't been resolved, and like I said, that disconnect that's just distanced couples, it can happen because of poor choices, and it can happen because of lack of intentionality, right?
Yeah.
Say Aaron and I get into this groove where we never go on dates, ever.
Yes.
That's going to put out that flame for me, because I especially love going out and going on dates. That's very romantic to me. That's very fun. That's going to kind of kill the flame. If it's our anniversary and I don't remember or do anything or say anything, Aaron's going to think, okay, whatever. That might kill the flame for him. If I'm trying to think of you. If I wasn't excited to spend time with him in the bedroom and like have a great time, that can kill the flame. And so there's so many aspects of the little things. If you forget to say I love you, you forget to connect throughout the day and text and call, you forget to go on date nights, you don't let intimacy happen, you forget the values that govern your marriage, values like respect and kindness and selflessness.
Wait a minute. So are you telling me that it's the little things that cause the problem?
That's what we say. Little things are the big things, right?
In a lot of instances, it's true, right? Maybe little things that build up over time, because great marriages are built brick by brick and day by day, as a great man once said. And bad marriages are also when you don't build them.
There's a lot of truth to that. And I think the other thing, one of the things that you mentioned, like sex is important, right? It's important for couples to share that together.
It's good for a woman that the fact that she said it's good. Yeah, many women need to hear that. It's good.
I will talk to them about it.
And then to the other side of the equation, like intimacy is important, and there's the physical intimacy that's critical in a marriage. But that also accompanies, an emotional intimacy and connection as well that has to be there, and the two really complement each other, right? If April is feeling connected emotionally, it makes the physical connection that much better. The other thing I was going to say was marriage is not, it's not a selfish endeavor, right? You can't approach it with a selfish attitude and expect it to work. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's much more about how can I look after and care for your needs, and then you have the same attitude. How can I look after and care for your needs in return? And when both spouses are approaching marriage with that type of an attitude, it's wonderful, because April's taking care of me, and I'm taking care of her, and it just creates this perpetual spiral upward, right? Where her being so concerned over me only makes me want to be more concerned for her, and vice versa. So when you're really approaching marriage with a selfless attitude, and you're in it for your spouse, Kelly, that's going to yield some really nice results, I think.
Yeah. So I like the fact that you said it, because when you get married, it's not about you; it's about serving the other person. And as long as you keep that in the forefront of your mind and you keep that as your focus, I think that your marriage will be successful. You guys said a lot of good things, but I have one last important question to ask you.
Okay.
When the kids are not around, what do you guys like to snack on?
Oh, easy. Frozen yogurt from Smart Cow.
Oh, tell us about Smart Cow. What is that?
Okay. Smart Cow, you're lucky, because Smart Cow is some froyo franchise that we love here in Colorado. We tend to share. We get salted caramel pretzel.
Ooh.
Oreos.
Sea salt caramel
pretzel with Oreos and heat. And we don't worry about the calories. And we love that. We are kind of froyo obsessed.
She's a chocolate girl. I'm a fruity guy.
Sounds happy medium.
We try to split the difference.
I like vanilla. Like, give me some vanilla, I'm good to go. My wife, she's about she's like in the mint chocolate chip.
I can't do mint chocolate chip.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah, like if you
give me like the Oreo.
Yeah, if you give me vanilla and you give me like some chocolate chip cookie dough or chocolate chip, I'm good to go. So,
Good.
so
You're
I'm
making me want to go right now.
There's no conflict that a little frozen yogurt doesn't help to blow over. So
especially if you're sharing, but whoever gets the last bite is lucky, right?
that's right.
That's right.
That's right. Then you
That's
know
awesome.
who really is the selfless spouse.
That's awesome. So, Aaron and April, as you can see, they have a lot of insight, and I hope that you guys took away some great things from what they were saying. Great information, great content. Check out their website. What's the website, Aaron, that the people can go to look at?
www.nurturingmarriage.org.
Awesome. Check them out. They got a lot of great things coming up. You don't want to miss it. This couple is doing some great things over there in Colorado, and you can probably expect them to do some traveling in the future, a lot more travel than what they're doing right now. So I want to thank them for joining me today on Marriage Grind this episode. I hope that you guys got a lot out of this episode, and the next one is coming up soon. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, BW.